Rogers TV North Durham Kawartha acknowledges that we are situated on the Mississauga lands and the traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We are grateful for the opportunity to work here, and we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. We also recognize the contributions of Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples, both in shaping and strengthening this community and country as a whole.
The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Welcome to Modern Business, the show that bridges the gap between the viewer and the entrepreneur or market maker. I'm your host, Taylor Bursey, and today we are joined by Hillary Griffen, owner and operator of her own fitness brand, Move with Hillary. Here to talk more about her initial steps into entrepreneurship, please welcome Hillary. Now, Hillary, in your own words, what is Move with Hillary?
So Move with Hillary started more as an online persona on Instagram of me just sharing my journey into the fitness world and the first few steps that I made as a fitness professional. And then as my career has sort of blossomed a little bit over the past few months, it's turned into more of a well-rounded brand. So it's really just myself as a personal trainer, as well as a group fitness instructor, and then also just on the online side, sharing a little bit more about kind of the day-to-day of my life as well.
Sure,
Yeah.
tips, tricks,
Yes.
all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
That's interesting. And how did you get started in building this fitness community, we'll call it?
Yeah, so I started in January. I had the opportunity to start teaching some group fitness classes, which is something I was always kind of interested in trying. So I started to sort of document that a little bit on my personal social media pages. And then as I realized that it was something I wanted to pursue more full time, it kind of grew into the Move with Hillary. And I separated it out of my sort of personal persona and more into a professional realm.
Very cool.
Yes.
And to start this persona, this fitness persona, I'm assuming you had to get some kind of education or qualifications to become a part of this fitness world. So what did you dabble in to become qualified to start training and giving health and wellness tips?
So I did my CanFit Pro personal training certification back earlier in the year. So that was kind of the first step, and then since then I've been doing a little bit of additional education and going to conferences and that sort of thing, just to kind of try and keep learning. I'm pretty new to the business, so that's been a big focus of mine this year.
And since you are pretty new to the business, what were you doing before?
So I have spent almost the last 10 years working in administrative positions, various places. I've worked in the medical sector, I've worked in the nonprofit sector, a bit in sales and retail, all over the place. I was finding that nothing was really feeling like a good fit, and I was moving around a lot. So that was kind of what got me thinking that maybe there was something else that would be better suited to me to kind of just feel more fulfilled in general.
And you're finding that now with the fitness community and the personal training, you're more fulfilled?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that I get to work on my feet. I found sitting at a desk it was hard for me to just sit still all day and in front of a computer. So that's been sort of a game changer for me, is being able to be on my feet, exercise, and get paid for it, which is amazing. And also I've made such amazing connections with so many people, and people are reaching out to me in a time in their life where they want to improve, or they're just excited about making some sort of change. So it's a nice way to interact with people.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And what was the catalyst for you? What really got you to take the step into, I'm going to start working towards this as a career?
So it was on a little bit of a whim. I saw last year there was a Black Friday sale for the CanFit certifications, and I just decided I'd really been enjoying kind of my own personal fitness journey. I really enjoyed working with a trainer. I've always loved going to group fitness classes.
Okay.
So it was something I had kind of thought about but wasn't really ready to take the leap. And when there was that sale on, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go, and if I don't like it, I don't like it, but at least then I can say I tried, and so that was kind of the first step, and it was really just not something I necessarily planned on. And if you'd asked me even 3 months before I did it, whether that was on my radar, no, it wasn't. So yeah, it was definitely spontaneous.
And was it scary making that investment in yourself, not knowing what the end goal would be?
It was a little bit. I've definitely been somebody who kind of makes decisions on a whim in general. So my sort of goal when I set out on this was that I wanted to make enough money working in this to get a return on the investment of the course. And if I decided at that point that I wasn't enjoying it or didn't want to pursue it long term, kind of nothing lost there. So that was how I went into it, and I think that really took the pressure off and allowed me to just sort of enjoy it rather than get really stressed out about kind of the long-term vision of it at the time.
And how did you make the first step? So after you got qualified, what was the first step to get business or to start training? What did you do?
Yeah, so I was very lucky in that a family member of mine was running some group fitness classes, and she at the time was looking for somebody to step in and start teaching some of them. So that was a great entry point. It was just a few nights a week, occasionally on the weekends. I was able to keep my full-time job at the time, so it was a nice way to just sort of dabble into it. And then after about 3 or 4 months of doing that part-time, I really was loving it so much, and it was getting harder and harder to go to my desk job every day. And at that point, it was kind of like, okay, I'm ready to maybe take some steps to make this a full-time gig. And luckily, some other stars aligned, and I was able to pull enough work together to be able to leave my desk job.
And when you talk about pulling enough work together to leave the desk job, did you sit down and make a plan that, okay, this is going to become my career and here are the steps I'm going to take to make it achievable? Or what was the strategy behind the transition?
So basically, I just kind of took a look financially at sort of how I was doing with my current work and sort of strategized as to what do I need to be able to accomplish, how many hours do I need to be putting in to at least kind of break even with where I was before. That was kind of my main goal, is I didn't want to necessarily step back financially. So that was step one, and then just pulling enough work together. So I was able to connect with a gym in Port Perry who was looking for a trainer at the time. And then that alongside the work that I was already doing. And I, at the time, had taken on another fitness position as well. So it was really just kind of a bit of a puzzle at the time to try and see, like, okay, here's everything that I could potentially do. How do I make that all fit together? And luckily it all worked out.
And speaking of it all working out, so what type of verticals do you offer for your business right now? Is it strictly personal training out of a singular gym, or what are you doing now?
So I've got my hands in a few pots. I do personal training through Anytime Fitness in Port Perry. I also do personal training privately out of a gym space that I rent. I teach classes at Anytime Fitness, and then I also teach classes through the township of Scugog. So between those, I'm here, there, and everywhere, but it makes for a full-time gig.
And how do you keep track of all that? Do you find yourself getting overwhelmed with everything you have going on?
Color coordinated calendars are my best friend. I live by my calendar. I am constantly checking, okay, where do I need to go next? I try as much as I can to sort of block my time in one location so that I'm not running around too much, but sometimes it's unavoidable. So definitely takes a lot of organization. I don't find it too overwhelming. I've always been someone who's quite comfortable with creating a schedule, and So it's worked out, and luckily everything for the most part is in Port Perry, so that helps as well.
So it's all nice and close.
Yes.
So would a typical day for Hillary be starting the morning at one gym, moving to another in the afternoon, and then teaching a class in the evening? Or how does it work?
Every day looks a little bit different. I often will be teaching in the mornings at any time. I take clients at any time throughout the day. It depends on the client.
At any time,
yes. And then in the evenings, I do some classes with the township at the arena. My own private clients, I do try and kind of block together at certain times. So there's certain evenings that I work out of the private gym that I use, as well as certain afternoons and certain mornings. So it really, really depends. Sometimes I'll start the day in one place, go to the private gym, end the day in another place. But also some days I'm running back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Anywhere and everywhere at any time.
Depends on the day, yeah.
And how do you market yourself in your business because you're all over the place? Is there one spot you're marketing yourself, or how does that work?
Yeah, so right now my marketing is primarily focused on the private work that I do. So the group classes that I teach, the clients are already signed up through either the arena or the town or anytime. So that I try and promote on my social media about the classes that I teach, but that's me working for somebody else, so I don't tend to promote it as much. Personal training, I definitely am promoting on my Instagram page. Right now, it's really the only avenue that I'm using for marketing. And that's really just because I don't have a ton of wiggle room in my schedule at the moment, so I'm not really looking at branching out the marketing right now.
And do you find it hard to separate Hillary the person from Hillary the brand on social media because you're relying so heavily on it?
I think that there's something really valuable in sharing about who you are as a person. Obviously, there are things that are too much information on a professional page, but I do think that being able to show your personality and share more about yourself than just what you're doing at the gym every day, it helps people to see kind of not only your style of training, but who you are as a person and if you might be a good fit to work together. So I think it can be difficult in determining what is relevant, but also being able to get a little bit more personal with it as well.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And with the majority of your private clients coming to you through Instagram, are you integrated with any kind of booking software, or how are you managing the booking in your schedule?
So the booking is all done by hand on my Apple Calendar. Yes. So right now I don't have a website. I don't have a scheduling system. So typically I try, if somebody's interested in personal training, I do try and set a time each week that I'm meeting with that person for a set amount of time. So it may be 6 weeks, it may be 12 weeks, but I'm meeting with that person every Thursday at 8 a.m., for example. Now, mind you, some people are shift workers, some people just have odd schedules, so it's not always possible, but I do find that helps a lot in just keeping things consistent and having at least some semblance of a routine week after week.
And do you have any plans to integrate any type of software or something to make your life a little easier as you continue on?
Yes, I think once my private work is my primary source of work, that's something that I would consider. Right now it is hard because I'm working in so many different places, so I wouldn't be booking a client from any time through a personal booking system. So I think that's something kind of down the line to look at, and when my private work does sort of take over, which hopefully it will eventually, that's something that I would definitely want to incorporate, yes.
Sounds like we have something to look forward to.
Yes.
Now don't go anywhere. We will be right back with Hillary right after this break.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Bob MacArthur, host and producer of Helping Durham Region. Join me as we shine a spotlight on how Durham Region residents help each other. That's Helping Durham Region right here on Rogers TV.
Here's Roloff in the slot, score! The OHL on Rogers TV.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Welcome back to Modern Business, the show that bridges the gap between the viewer and the entrepreneur or market maker. Today we're talking to Hillary Griffen, owner and operator of her own personal fitness brand, Move with Hillary. Now Hillary, before the break we were talking about all the verticals you have and how crazy busy your schedule is, but how much you love it. And with a crazy busy schedule and multiple verticals, I'm assuming you're meeting all different types of people. But do you have an ideal target demo for your fitness community, or is it anyone and everyone?
At the moment, it is all over the place. I've had teens, I've had many senior citizens, and everything in between. I would say primarily right now it's been women, but I also have trained some men clients as well. Ideally, I would love to shift more to a little bit of an older demographic, and by that I would say like early retirement, 60s, 70s. That tends to be the demographic that I just really hit it off with the most. And also it's such a crucial time for people to make sure that they're being active and building up some muscle mass, or at least maintaining some muscle mass, because as we reach that older age, especially like 80s and 90s, that's going to be a game changer in terms of quality of life if you can set up some good practices in those 60s and 70s years. So that's something that I think is really important, and I love to help people of that age group.
That sounds amazing. And a little bit opposite from what we've heard from previous trainers on this show, I feel like early in your fitness career, oftentimes people are looking for the young bodybuilders and other types of demographics that are maybe a little more, quote, glamorous and fun, whereas you're coming from a perspective of, I really want to make sure that people live a healthy, balanced, well-rounded lifestyle, which is just speaks to your character and how you're going to carry yourself through this industry. Mm-hmm. Do you have any plans to market yourself to that exact demographic? I'm assuming they're not on Instagram.
They are not, no. So as of right now, I'm getting the majority of those clients through my group classes that I've been teaching. So especially in my morning classes, the 9:15, 9:30 crowd, that's usually people who are retired, or some shift workers. But so I've tended to connect with those people more face-to-face or through word of mouth. I don't currently have a plan of sort of honing in on that demographic until I can gain a little bit more education and experience with that specifically. So I do have intentions of getting some further training in sort of active aging, and at that point I would definitely look into more branding myself towards that.
Very cool.
Yes.
Now currently, since you are servicing a wide range of demographics and different athletic abilities, do you have an onboarding process that's maybe just a general onboarding process for people that work with you?
Yeah, so with my private clients especially, I have a pretty routine onboarding process. So usually the first step, if the client is wanting to, I love to have a conversation on the phone and just sort of hear about who they are, what their goals are, give them a little bit more about me and my training style as well, just to make sure that we would be a good fit. And then once we book that first session, then I do have some paperwork, a little bit of sort of health and lifestyle questionnaires, going over my policies and that sort of thing. And then the first session, I would say the first half of our first session together is primarily assessments, kind of seeing where we're at strength-wise and mobility-wise to begin, seeing where there's opportunities to help that person or where they're already really excelling, and kind of formulating a plan from there as to what would work best for them.
And how did you come up with that onboarding process? Was it a part of your training, or is it from experience? How did you create the plan?
A bit of a blend of both. Okay. So it was definitely something that they went over quite a bit in my CanFit Pro training. So that was great. They gave us access to copies of health questionnaires that are sort of generic. Everyone uses them. So that was awesome. And they did give us a really good bank of questions to sort of go over with people to get a better idea of what they're looking for and how to best help them. And then just through my own experience, I've added in a few questions that I think make the process a little bit more personal. And like, for example, finding out what they already do and what they like and what they've tried and didn't like and that sort of thing, I think is really important, because oftentimes people are entering this space feeling a bit intimidated. So if you can show that you really care about making it an enjoyable experience for them, I think that's really important too. And
do you see any common issues with people that come in the onboarding process? Are there workplace-based ailments or something that you need to consistently work on?
Yes, I would say most common thing I have across the board is just postural issues, and oftentimes it's from sitting at desks or being on your phone all the time. A lot of people have that more sort of slouched posture. So working on back strengthening, for example, is something that's really important for a lot of people, to just sort of pull that posture back. And then I've also worked with a lot of people who have had injuries or perhaps like a knee or hip replacement, and they maybe have imbalances. One side's a lot stronger than the other. So taking a look at that and seeing where we need to work to build that balance back.
And is that something that you're doing through the personal training knowledge that you have, or are you taking courses specifically on how to deal with people that have injuries or surgery-based recoveries?
So that is something that I learned a bit about through my training. Obviously, if somebody has more sort of advanced issues, I always recommend working with like a physiotherapist or something like that. But typically, well, for anyone to work with me, they need to be cleared medically to be able to do so. So I'm working with people at a point where it's safe for them in that point in their recovery to continue exercising.
Now, when it comes to your business, building this brand and everything that you have going on, what would you say has been your biggest challenge thus far?
I think the biggest challenge for me has been just sort of balancing work and my personal time, because I work for myself now. It's very easy to let that take over a lot of your time. And I'm quite introverted, so as much as I love working with my clients and I love connecting with them and chatting with them, I also have realized that I need to really schedule and set aside time for myself and sort of recharge my social battery so that I can come to each session or each class feeling fully present and really giving the people the attention that they deserve.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when it came to starting the business side of this business, speaking of challenges, we've talked a lot about the actual application of the training, but we haven't talked about what happens behind the scenes. Were you prepared and knew what you needed to do to invoice and schedule and do all that aspect, or how did you tackle that?
Yeah, that has been definitely a learning process. I feel like I've implemented certain things and then realized, oh, that's maybe not the best way for me to be doing that, and have had to shift. There wasn't really anything that I didn't expect. Maybe certain things took more time than I anticipated, and things like learning about filing self-employment taxes and that sort of thing. It just is something I've never had to do. So luckily my sister is very smart, and she works in finance and has done a lot of small business bookkeeping and taxes and that sort of thing. So she's always open to me giving her a call and telling me what I need to be doing.
We love a sister manager, absolutely.
Yes.
And then when it came to negotiating deals, for example, you mentioned earlier that you work with a private gym to host your private clients. Did you take any courses on that? Did you ask any advice on how to negotiate that or work that out? Or did you just wing it and see how it went?
I would say a bit of both. So my background, actually, I have a Bachelor of Commerce. So I went through business school. I feel like a lot of this I learned about in school. I've had to apply through different jobs that I've had. So none of it was completely new to me. There were certain things that I've definitely not actually had to do in a professional setting that maybe I learned in school. So that's kind of where I was winging it a bit, but had to dig back to a decade ago when I finished my schooling.
That's very interesting that you had the foundation, so you knew how to apply some of the aspects, and then you kind of dove into an industry that it sounds like you didn't think you were going to dive into 10 years ago when you were in school for commerce.
Correct, yes.
So now that we've looked back, let's look forward. Mm-hmm. Where do you see yourself and your brand going within the next 3 to 5 years?
I would say the next 2 to 3 years will be a lot of learning. I'm very new to this industry. I've been doing it for less than a year, so I have really valued watching my colleagues and peers in the industry to learn like practical things of like best ways to deal with certain scenarios and that sort of thing. So that's been my main focus right now. Long term, I would love to have my own space. I've loved working in all the places that I've worked so far, and I look forward to continuing that. But ideally, I will be a little bit more autonomous in my work in the long term. And I'm still just sort of dreaming of what that will look like. And I want to be really intentional with the business decisions that I make. So I would rather take my time and make sure that it really fits with who I am and where I want to go, rather than kind of going into it just for the sake of it. So right now, just taking it all in and seeing, I feel like I could say that I want to do this today, and 3 years from now, I'll maybe have a totally different idea of where I want it to go. So right now, I'm just sort of taking it slow, but I definitely have those higher aspirations for the future.
You're open, but you're not rushing.
Correct, yes.
So with that, you mentioned something crucial. You're soaking everything in as you're new to the industry. Do you ever feel any sort of imposter syndrome as you've started this career?
Definitely when I first started, I was very intimidated. I have worked with personal trainers. I've gone to so many group classes where I'm just in awe of the trainers, and I feel like when I first started, I didn't really see myself on that same level, but I've been so fortunate to work with such amazing clients who are just excited to be there and have made me feel so confident and giving positive feedback. So that's something that has slowly sort of dissipated as I've been going. But the first little while was scary for sure. It was a fake it till you make it kind of situation.
We're familiar with that on this show.
Yeah.
Now, do you have a trade tip for our audience today?
I would say my trade tip for just the general public when it comes to incorporating movement and exercise into your routine, and this could also go for just any entrepreneur in general, is really to focus on progress over perfection. So that's something that has taken me some time to sort of work through myself as well, but something that's really important is just making moves and taking those steps, even if it's not exactly how you pictured it. Just working on moving forward rather than letting the fear of doing it wrong hold you back.
I love it.
Yes.
Hillary, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
This has been another edition of Modern Business. I'm your host, Taylor Bursey, and we'll be back next time.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Mondays on City TV.
I feel strongly about so many of these women. I have Millie Gucci on my mind. I have zero doubts that one of these women